Hearthstone's newest expansion, the Lost City of Ungoro, is finally here, and there are a ton of new cards. So in this video, I prepared 11 brand new decks, one for every class, ready for you to use on day one of the new expansion. Now there's a lot of really cool effects and archetypes from this expansion, but the main mechanic is the quest mechanic. And every class has access to a different quest, where it's a card that starts in your opening hand, and you can progress it throughout the game for a big reward. So every deck in this video is going to be a quest deck, with the exception of one. And for each deck you're about to see, I tried to make them as unique as I could, using as many of the new expansion cards as possible, while still keeping them competitively viable. So without further ado, let's hop into the first deck. Alright, so to kick things off, our first deck is going to be Quest Death Knight with Reanimate the Terror. And this says that if you spend 18 corpses throughout the game, you get Tarax. And what Tarax is a big 5 mana 8/8 that when it dies, you get a location that deals 4 damage and has 2 uses. But when you use that second use, you get Tarax back again. So you end up going infinite with this quest reward. But generating and spending 18 corpses is no joke. So to help us generate all those corpses, we're running a couple of new cards from this expansion, which is Reluctant Wrangler, a 3 mana 1/1 with Reborn, and when it dies, you get a 2/2 with Taunt. So because it has Reborn and you get to do this effect twice, you end up with 4 corpses from this one card. And we're also running Blob of Tar, which is a 4 mana 2/4 Taunt and Poison, and when it dies, you get a little 1/2 with Taunt and a 1/2 with Poison. So not only is it super annoying to deal with, but you get 3 corpses out of this one card as well. And to help us spend all those 18 corpses, we're running another new card, Reanimated Pterodax, which is a 5 mana 4/3 with Rush and Lifesteal, but it costs corpses instead of mana. And because we're generating so many corpses in this deck, it's not hard to get 5 corpses to make this 0 mana. Another really fun card we get to run in this deck is Elise the Navigator. And she says that if your deck started with 10 different costed cards, then we get to craft a custom location. And these locations either are 1, 5, or 10 mana and have 3 charges to it. And you get to put 2 powerful effects onto them, like deal damage to all enemies, or summon a bunch of raptors with Rush, or copy a friendly minion. And yeah, it's just so versatile, and you get so much value out of this one card. And another cheeky little combo that we can do with this deck, because Elise crafts a location, and our quest reward Tarax gives us a location when it dies, we can use a Scrapbooking Student, which is a 5 mana 5/5, has a battle cry to copy a friendly location, so we can get 2 Elise locations or 2 Tarax locations. Now that's a lot of value. Alright, the second deck up is going to be Quest Demon Hunter with Unleash the Colossus, where if you deal 2 damage to an enemy on your turn 15 times, then you get Gorishi Colossus, which is a big 5 mana 8/8 that makes it so whenever you deal 2 damage to an enemy for the rest of the game, instead it deals 2 more. And there is a lot of ways of dealing 2 damage to an enemy on your turn, like especially with the new Gorishi Stinger cards, which are 1 mana spells that deal 2 damage and summon a 2/1 with Rush. So for each one of these Stinger spells, you can progress the quest by 2 times, like Infestation, where it's a 2 mana spell that gives you 2 Gorishi Stingers. We also have Insect Claw, which is a 3 mana 2/2 weapon. Whenever you attack, you get a 2/1 rusher. So each time you can attack, you can progress the quest by 2 times. And then we also have the Gorishi Wasp, which is a 6 mana 2/8 that whenever it takes damage, you get a Gorishi Stinger card. So all these Stinger cards progress your quest pretty quickly. And then some other cards that we have that deal 2 damage, we have the new Gorishi Tunneler, where it's a 3 mana 2/4 with Stealth, and whenever it attacks, it deals 2 damage to the enemy hero. And then to really turbo progress your quest, we have a lot of 2 damage AoE spells. Like we have Hot Coals, which deals 2 damage to everything. We have Mixologist, which can give you a potion that deals 2 damage to everything. We have Wyvern Slumber that can do 2 damage to everything, as well as Nomelia Safe Pilot that has a death rattle to deal 2 damage to all enemies. So the more minions that your opponent plays, the faster we can complete our quest. And then once our quest complete, all of these little 1 mana Stinger cards all of a sudden deal 4 damage each. And you'd be surprised how quickly that damage adds up, so it's super easy to close out games once you complete your quest. Alright, coming in with the next deck at number 3 is going to be Quest Shaman with Spirit of the Mountain. And that says if you've played 7 different minion types throughout the game, then you get Ashelon, which is a big 5 mana 8/8, and you get to adapt twice, which means you get to choose 2 random effects like Divine Shield or Stealth or Wind Fury or +3 health and Taunt. And for the rest of the game, any minion that you play also gets those 2 bonus effects. And this can get even crazier if we can combine it with Shutter Block, which makes our next battle cry trigger 3 times. cards, so we can get 6 bonus effects on Ashlon and all of our minions for the rest of the game. And technically, we can get even more because we are running Cloud Serpent, which is a 4 mana 4/3 elemental dragon that copies a random elemental or dragon in your hand. And because Ashlon is an elemental, we can copy that. And if we play Shutter Block before the first Ashlon, and then the Shutter Block mini before the second Ashlon, we can get up to 12 bonus effects on all of our minions for the rest of the game. Now that's nuts. So to help us get to the quest reward as fast as possible, most of the minions in this deck have dual minion types, like the new Cinderfin, which is an elemental murloc, and it's a 2 mana 1/2 with a death rattle to summon a Sizzling Cinder, which is a 1 mana 2/1 that deals 2 damage split up when it dies. So because it has 2 different minion types, it can count as either one for whichever type you're missing for the quest. And speaking of Sizzling Cinders, we can also play the new Slagma, which is a 5 mana 3/4 elemental dragon that has a battle cry to summon 2 Sizzling Cinders and Kindred. So if you've played an elemental or dragon last turn, then you get to trigger those Sizzling Cinders death rattles. And speaking of Kindred, we are running the new Torga legendary card as well, which is a 4 mana 2/7 with a battle cry to draw a Kindred card and a card that can activate it. And the only Kindred card in our deck is the Slagmas. We're guaranteed to draw a Slagma and either an elemental or dragon to activate it. All in all, this looks like a really solid deck with a lot of aggression and a lot of value to it. And with all the dual type minions nowadays, it's definitely not hard to complete this quest. Coming in at number 4, we have Quest Mage, and that's with the Forbidden Sequence, where when you've discovered 8 times, you get the Origin Stone, which is a 3 mana weapon with 8 durability. And while you have it equipped, whenever you discover whichever option you don't pick, the other options will cast for free. And it is super easy to complete this quest because there are just so many Discover cards in Standard that we can just fill up our entire deck of Discover cards. And in fact, I think every single card in this deck discovers something else, with the exception of a couple cards like Stored Shuffle, which is a 3 mana spell to deal 3 damage to a minion, but it costs 0 if you've discovered this turn, and that's pretty much every single turn for us. And then we also have Story of the Waygate, which is a 2 mana spell to reduce the cost of all cards in your hand that didn't start in your deck by 1. A few other cards in this deck that have amazing synergy in here are the Scrappy Scavenger, which is a 1 mana 1/1 minion, but it has a battle cry to discover a card with cost equal to your remaining mana crystals. So if you use this after the quest, like on turn 9, you get to discover 3 8-cost cards, and 2 of them are being cast for free. We're also running the Tide Pool's Location, which is amazing for progressing the quest because it allows us to discover 3 times, so it almost gets us halfway there with just this 1 card. But there's a new card in here that can progress the quest in 1 card, and that's Pocket Dimension, where you get to discover a card over and over again until you see in a card that you've seen twice. So if you're lucky enough and you don't see any repeated discovers, you can just keep on discovering until your hand is full or the quest is complete. And if you play this after the quest, it's especially crazy because as you keep discovering all these spells, you have 2 options every time that keep getting cast for free. I did actually get to play this deck for the early access theory crafting event, and it performed really well, but it was kind of difficult to play because you have so many choices to make every single turn with all your discovers. But because of that, you get so many options to counter your opponent for whatever they're doing. So whatever you need, you can just discover it, and it makes this deck really versatile and really strong. Alright, so the next deck that I have for you is going to be a Quest Paladin, which is focused around Dive the Galaka Depths. And this one is interesting because it's a repeatable quest. So for every 5 Murlocs that you summon, all Murlocs for the rest of the game will get an extra +1/+1. And because we're summoning so many Murlocs in this deck, literally every card in this deck is a Murloc. It's pretty easy to ramp this quest up fast, so your Murlocs end up getting huge. So we have a few great new Murlocs from this expansion to help us complete our quest. We have the Hot Spring Glider, which is a 3 mana 2/4 Murloc, where it makes your next Murloc cost 2 less, and it also has Kindred, so if you've played a Murloc last turn, then the next minion also gets Divine Shield. And we're also running the Steam Fin Thief, which is a 4 mana 4/3 Murloc that has Kindred, so if we played a Murloc last turn, to summon 2 1/1 Rushers. And it gets even crazier if you can combine it with the Primal Fin Challenger, which is a 3 mana 3/2 Murloc that makes your next Kindred activate twice. So now all of a sudden with the Steam Fin Thief, we get 4 Rushers, and that actually does complete one part of the quest with just 1 card. And then we're also running another powerful new Murloc, the Tyrannogill, which is a 6 mana 6/3 with Rush, and it also has a Death Rattle to summon 3 2/1 Murlocs with random bonus effects. So for just 1 card, you get 4 Murlocs total with this. And because we're a Murloc deck, one of the coolest cards we get to run is Grunty, which is an 8 mana 3/4 Murloc that summons 4 random Murlocs, and you get to fire them at enemy minions. And by turn 8, you've probably summoned a lot of Murlocs and completed your quest a few times, so the minions summoned from Grunty are going to be pretty big. big, and it also completes another part of the quest by itself. All in all, I think this will be one of the strongest decks from the new expansion. It's relatively cheap to craft and easy to play, but I think this will be a very safe deck to craft on day one. Coming in at number 6, this is going to be one of my favorite quest decks, mainly because the artwork is so cool for it, and that's Quest Priest. This is all built around Reach Equilibrium, which actually has 2 parts of the quest. The first part, you need to cast 5 holy spells, and then you get Soledos Life's Breath. It's a 5-mana 4/4 with Taunt, and it summons a copy of itself. And then the second part of the quest, you need to cast 5 shadow spells, and then you get Soledos Death's Touch, which is a 5-mana 4/4 with Reborn and a Death Rattle to deal 5 damage to a random enemy. But if you can complete both parts of the quest, then both quest rewards will combine in your hand to form Soledos Cycle's Rebirth, which is a huge 5-mana 8/8 with Taunt and Reborn and a Death Rattle to deal 5 damage to a random enemy, and it also copies itself. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff on one card, and it ends games pretty quickly once you play it. But to get there, we need to cast a lot of holy and a lot of shadow spells, and to help us with that, we're running the new Glade Ecologist, which is a 1-mana 2/1 with a Death Rattle to give you a 1-cost holy spell in your hand that either gives a minion +2 health or -2 health. We're also running the new Grave Dawn Sunbloom, which is a 4-mana holy spell to draw 2 cards, but it also has Kindred, so if you cast a holy spell last turn, it costs 2 less. And then we're also running the other Grave Dawn card, the Grave Dawn Void Bulb, which is a 4-mana shadow spell to summon a random 4-cost minion with Taunt, but it also has Kindred too, so if you cast a shadow spell last turn, you get to summon another 4-cost minion with Taunt. And to help us draw both of these Grave Dawn cards, since they both have Kindred, we can run Torga, which is the 4-mana 2/7 that has a battle cry to draw a Kindred card and a card that activates it. And then as we're casting a bunch of holy spells and a bunch of shadow spells, we can take advantage of the Glade Song Siren, which is a big 6-mana 4/7 with lifesteal. But if you've cast a holy and a shadow spell this turn, then it only costs 1 mana. And that's really easy to do in this deck because most of our holy and shadow spells only cost 1 or 2 mana. Yeah, all in all, this deck has a surprising amount of tempo to it. And I did get to try this for the early access theory crafting event, and it performed a lot better than I thought it would. Alright, so the next deck that we have up is going to be Quest Druid, and this one is called Restore the Wild, where if you fill up your board on 3 of your turns, then you get the Everbloom, which is a 3-mana 2/5 weapon, where every time you attack, it gives all your minions +2/+2. So yeah, once this is equipped, you can really crank out the damage. But to help get us to our quest reward, we're going to need a lot of cards that summon a lot of minions. And that's where things like Ravenous Flock come into play, where on your next turn, you get to summon 3 2/1 minions. And because eggs are really hard to kill, we're running in the little egg package in here with the new Sky Screamer eggs, where it's a 3-mana 0/2 egg with a Death Rattle to summon 4 2/1 minions. And of course, we're running the good old Nerubian egg. And to help us pop those eggs to help fill up our board, we can run another new card, Life Cycle, which is a 1-mana spell to destroy a minion and then summon a random minion of that cost. So if you use it on the Sky Screamer eggs, that's insane tempo. Not only do you get to break your own egg, so you get to summon a random 3-cost minion all for just 1 mana. We can also use it on an Eternal Blood Petal, which is a 4-mana 5/1 with a Death Rattle to summon a 0/1 Eternal Seedling, where when that dies, it'll summon an Eternal Blood Petal. And yeah, you get the idea, but it basically goes infinite. Another few cards that help summon a lot of minions. We have Mother Duck, which is a 4-mana 2/3 that summons 3 1/1 rushers, and Flipper Friends, which summons 6 1/1 rushers. And then we also have the new Trees, which is a 5-mana spell where you get to target a minion and summon 4 2/2 treants to attack it. So you can see there's just tons of ways of filling up your board over and over again to complete the quest. And to help take advantage of all these minions that you're summoning, we're running another new card, the Hatchery Helper. And this card is insane because it's a 3-mana 2/3 with a battle cry to make all your minions with 2 or less attack gain +1/+2 and taunt. And that's pretty much every minion that we summon, so you get a ton of extra stats from this card. So yeah, this was another deck that I got to play for the early access event, and it did feel very strong. So I'm looking forward to playing this, but I'm not looking forward to playing against it. This next deck up is going to be a fun one, and that's the Rogue quest with Lie in Wait, where when you've shuffled cards into your deck 5 different times, you get Master Dusk, which is a new hero card for 5 mana. When you play it, you get 2 3/3 ninjas, and for the rest of the game, whenever a ninja dies, it shuffles back into your deck instead of dying. And you also get a new hero power. For 1 mana, you get to draw 2 cards from your deck that didn't start there. So a really easy way of drawing those ninjas back every single turn, or whatever else you shuffle into your deck. So the cards that are going to help us complete complete the quest and shuffle cards into our deck, we have the new Interrogation, which is a 2-mana spell to shuffle 3/3/3 ninjas with stealth into your deck. And then we also have the Moonstone Mauler, which shuffles 3 asteroids into your deck. And we can even bounce this Moonstone Mauler back to our hand with Shadow Step or Web of Deception to shuffle even more asteroids to help complete our quest even faster. And then we're also running a couple of Floppy Hydras, which is a 3-mana 2/4 with a Death Rattle to shuffle itself back into your deck with double the stats. So as you keep playing it and drawing it and it keeps dying and shuffling into your deck, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just a nice other repeatable way of completing your quest. And as we keep shuffling cards into our deck over and over, we can take advantage of a couple of other new cards like Knockback, which does 1 damage to a minion, but it increases by 1 damage each time that you shuffle a card into your deck. And then we're also running the Underbrush Tracker, which is a 7-mana 5/5 with Rush, which gets 1 mana cheaper for each time you shuffle the card into your deck. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one because shuffling stuff into your deck is always a lot of fun. Alright, so next up on our list, we have Quest Warlock. And this is all centered around Escape the Underfell, where when you've played 6 temporary cards, you get a 5-mana spell as the reward, which opens the Underfell Rift. An Underfell Rift is a permanent location that stays on your board, and every turn you can sacrifice a card from your hand into this rift to summon 2 Fell Beasts. And there's 3 different Fell Beasts. There's a 3/5 Taunt with Reborn, there's a 5/3 with Rush and Lifesteal, and there's a 4/4 with Elusive and Charge. And because you get 2 of these every turn you sacrifice a card in your hand, that is a ton of value every single turn. So to help us play 6 temporary cards, we're running a lot of new cards here, like the Cursed Catacombs, which is a 0-mana spell to discover a card in your deck and make it temporary. Well, the highest cost card in our deck is only 5 mana. So pretty much whatever options we get from Cursed Catacombs, we can play right away. We're also running the Blood Petal Biome, which is a 1-mana location that gives you a temporary 1-cost minion. So for just 1 mana and 1 card, you get a third of the way to completing your quest already with this. We also have the new Tunnel Terror, which is a 3-mana 4/3 with a Death Rattle to get 2 random 2-cost minions and make them temporary. And we're also running some older temporary cards too, like the Sweetened Snow Flurry, which gives you 2 temporary frost spells in your hand, and most of them are pretty cheap, so you can play them right away. And you also get a miniature version of the Sweetened Snow Flurry, so you can do it again, getting 2 more temporary frost spells. And then we have the legendary Solarium, where for 1 mana you gotta draw 3 cards and make them temporary, and it's pretty easy to play 2 or 3 of them right away because there's so many cheap cards in this deck. And to help us play our temporary cards a little bit easier, we're running the new Spelunker, which is a 2-mana minion that makes your next temporary card cost 2 less. Other than that, we're complementing all of our temporary stuff with the typical Control Zerg package. So we have the 2 Ultralisk Caverns, which are great board clears, especially if you can combine them with Layover. And we have the 2 Consumes for some really great healing. Make sure that we can survive long enough for our quest reward to keep putting on the pressure. Alright, so our 10th deck up and our second to last deck is going to be Quest Hunter. And the quest for this deck is the Food Chain, where you need to play a 1, 3, 5, and 7 attack minion, and then you get Shock, which is a big 5-mana 9/9 rush, and a battle cry to get an 8, 6, and 4 attack beast and set their cost to 2 mana. So this is an absolute insane tempo swing once you can complete the quest. So the requirement to get Shock is very specific. So the 1 attack beasts that we're going to be running are going to be Jeweled Macaw, the Scarab Keychain, and the new Ancient Stegodon, which is a 3-mana 1/5. You can choose to give it Taunt, Poisonous, or +1/+1. And then for the 3 attack beasts, we're running Catch of the Day, Painted Canvasaur, and Cash Cow. For the 5-mana beasts, we're running the good old King Mukla, as well as the new Ravasor Matriarch, which is a 4-mana 5/4 with Kindred, meaning if we've played a beast last turn, to deal damage to an enemy minion equal to this minion's attack. And then for the big ol' 7 attack minions, we're running Tyrannosaurus, as well as the new Terrorwing Ravager, which is a 6-mana 7/5 with Rush, but also has Kindred, so if you played a beast last turn, then it costs 4. And to help us find whatever beast we need to help complete the quest, we're running Master's Call, where for 3 mana you get to discover a minion from your deck. If all 3 of them are beasts, we get to draw all 3, which they always are. And to help us get even more tempo while we're playing all of these beasts to complete our quest, we can play the new Cower in Fear, where it's a 2-mana spell to deal 3 damage to a minion, and it makes your next beast this turn cost 2 less. So it essentially makes Cower in Fear 0 mana. So yeah, get ready to shock your opponents with this deck, and it looks like a lot of fun too. Alright, now last deck up, but certainly not least, and I did hint that there was going to be one deck in here that was not a quest deck, and that's going to be this Enrage Warrior. Now, I chose not to go the quest route just because it wasn't anything different or unique. It pretty much is just the same Control Warrior, but with the quest. But with this new Enrage Warrior, we can use a lot of new cards from this expansion, and it looks pretty unique and fun. So one of the main powerhouse cards in this deck is Stonecarver, which is a new 2-mana 1/4 minion, where at the end of your turn, you give a random damaged friendly minion +2 2/2. And yes, this does work on itself. So if you play a turn 1 Sanguine Depths into a turn 2 Stone Carver and then ping itself, it can keep buffing itself up every single turn to get huge. We're also running a new card to help us damage our own minions, and that's the new weapon, Axe of the Forefathers, which is a 3-mana 2/2 weapon where every single time you attack, it deals 1 damage to all minions. And this is great to damage our own minions for those extra bonus effects and to get buffed by Stone Carver, but it's especially good if you can combine it with a Frothing Berserker on the field, because Frothing Berserker is a 3-mana 2/4 where whenever any minion is damaged, this gets +1 attack. So if you're damaging everything on the field with this weapon every single time you attack, a Frothing Berserker can get pretty huge pretty fast. We're also running the new City Defenses card, where you get 2 0/6 minions with taunt, and every single time they're damaged, they get an extra attack. And as we get some beefed up damaged minions on our side, we can play Nablia, which is a new 6-mana legendary that copies all friendly damaged minions. This can be an insane tempo swing that might just end the game. And for our finishers, we're running the good old Shaladrasil as well as Gromosh. I mean, it wouldn't be an enraged deck without Gromosh after all. And that's a big 8-mana 4/9 with charge, and when it gets damaged, it gets +6 attack. I did actually get to test this deck for the early access theory crafting event, and this was surprisingly my best performing deck. I ended up going 7-1, so this might be a pretty strong deck that's hiding under the radar. Well, that about wraps up all the new decks that I have ready for you guys to use on day 1 of the new expansion, the Lost City of Ungoro. I hope you enjoy all or some of them, and if you found any of the decks helpful, then let me know by leaving a like down below. And now I want to hear from you guys. Which decks are you looking forward to playing on day 1 of the new expansion? But I'll see you guys in the Lost City of Ungoro, and stay funky.